WADR.
WADR.
West Africa Democracy Radio.
WADR. Promoting dialogue.
Good afternoon, and thank you for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on WADR.org. It's midday, and this is NewsLink. Here are the top stories. Liberia's President-elect Joseph Boakai assures inclusive government and economic reforms in his post-election victory speech.
The challenges of this country must be confronted immediately and head-on to create an equal future for all Liberians and succeeding generations. We must have no stone unturned to address and remove economic, social, political disparity that undermine our potential.
The dissolved Senegalese opposition political party PASTEF begins a sponsorship campaign ahead of the February presidential elections. Niger's junta leader, General Chani, makes the first official trip to Bamako to strengthen bilateral and security cooperation. And in Nigeria, 17 died following truck crash in the central state of Niger. Please stay tuned for details of the stories and more.
Here is Imo Edit with NewsLink.
Many thanks for joining us. Liberian President-elect Joseph Boakai says his administration will embark on the immediate implementation of measures to address the socio-economic constraints facing his country. Boakai, in his first post-election victory speech, assures of the formulation of an inclusive and competent government to improve the cost of living, among others.
We call them to join hands to exploit the full potential of a country promise. We must join in the transformation that will lift our people from the very economic and social inequities, the injustices they have been through for many years. I today want to thank all of you, my fellow citizens. I believe these elections were a watershed moment in the history of Liberia for two reasons. First, it demonstrated the power of the people and their commitment to the democratic process, no matter where threats come from. Second, these elections show the progress we have made as a nation since the end of the war to maintain our peace and consolidate the foundations of multi-party democracy. We have signaled to the region and to the world at large that we will be a great example of a working democracy that many will live. The hard work to rebuild starts now. The challenges of this country must be confronted immediately and head-on to create an equal future for all Liberians and succeeding generations. We must have no stone unturned to address and remove economic, social, political disparity that undermine our potential.
Now, 78 Joseph Boakai will take his oath of office in January 2024 as Liberia's 26th head of state. In Senegal, the sponsorship campaign to have one candidacy validated for the next presidential election is ongoing as supporters of incarcerated opposition candidate Ousmane Sonko are out in force collecting sponsorships for Bassirou Diomaye Faye, Sonko's designated replacement. However, they still have 3 weeks to collect at least 45,000 signatures. Sang Donald Mendy report.
Issa heads for one of the sponsorship points set up on this roundabout in the commune of Wakam, Dakar. ID card clutched tightly in his right hand, the man in the blue shirt and the frizzy hair finds other activists who have come to sponsor Bassirou Diomaye Faye, now a candidate for the dissolved opposition political party PASTEF. After signing, Issa spreads his joy.
I am really very happy. My leader Usman Sonko nominated Jomai because he has confidence in him, so I have to go and sponsor him.
Habibu, a fast bus driver, is confident that Basiru Jomai Faye's candidacy will be validated. Sponsorships can't be a barrier, says the 40-year-old, whose clothes are stained with petrol oil.
He will pass the sponsorship stage and become a candidate. That's what the camp in power doesn't want to hear, but it's no use. The whole of Senegal has just learned that sponsorship has begun. This is already a defeat for them.
Candidates must collect at least 45,000 sponsors to take part in the presidential election on the 25th February 2024. In Wakam, Mamadou Gujabi is coordinating sponsorship operations for the dissolved party. Gudibe is steadily on calls to sponsors of the newly elected candidate.
We have set ourselves a target of 10,000 to 20,000 sponsors, but that will depend on the deadline. If we had started in time with the other candidates, we might have reached 20,000. But since we have just started with this enthusiasm, we hope to reach our target.
The final list of the candidates for the presidential election is expected on January 20th, weeks before the elections.
In Ghana, security analyst is highlighting lapses in the renewed ethnic clashes in Nkwanta in the Oti region. 8 people have been confirmed dead and many others injured after unidentified men fired sporadically into a busy market. Adib Sani faulted successive governments for not putting in mechanisms to holistically address the recurrent incidents of violence, with the latest one recording the highest casualties. From Accra, WDR's Nat Dedetete reports.
Local residents reported escalating tension over the past 3 weeks due to disputes surrounding a yam festival organized by the Achode people. The situation reached a critical point on Monday when unidentified men into a busy market, resulting in the death of 8 individuals and injuries to a dozen others. Many have fled the area in search for safety. Oti Regional Minister Dr. Joshua Makubu says an assessment of the security situation in the area is ongoing.
We are still assessing the situation with the security presence. As at when we feel that normal life can return to Nkwanta. As we speak now, some schools have been closed down and other things. So based on the intelligence on the ground and advice on the security agencies, we inform the people accordingly. But for now, anybody that is living in Nkwanta should not be in a rush to run out of town because we have enough men on ground.
Security analyst Adib Sani highlighted security lapses in the recent incident and called for a comprehensive approach to address the underlying issues fueling the violence.
I wouldn't say it's helpless. If not, it would have been a free-for-all. But surely there are some lapses, major fundamental issues with, conflict resolution in the country. First, we think that the absence of belligerence means the presence of peace, but it's not always the situation. On this equation, we really have to deal with it holistically, deliberately, progressively, so we are able to avoid such situations from happening again.
He also attributed the recurring incidents to the failure to sanction culprits involved in previous violent acts. For WADR, Nadidi Teti, Accra.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. NewsLink continues.
The head of Niger's ruling military, General Abdurrahman Chani, is expected in Bamako today, Thursday, for a friendly working visit. This is his first trip outside Niger since taking power in late July. Chani, together with his Malian counterpart, Kanasimi Goita, will be discussing bilateral cooperation and the security situation in the Sahel. Abdullah Hassan reports.
According to the schedule published by the Malian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, General Abdurrahman Chani will arrive in Bamako Thursday morning. He will then be received by the President of the Transition, Colonel Assimi Goita. The two men will discuss bilateral relations and the security situation in the Sahel region. Recall in September this year, Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger created the Alliance of Sahel States AES. Particular emphasis will be placed on the Young Alliance of Sahel State, which brings together Bamako, Ouagadougou, and Niamey in the name of the fight against terrorism. The operational framework of this alliance on the ground will be discussed. Since the military under the aegis of the CNSP came to power in Niger 4 months ago, Niamey and Bamako have also strengthened their cooperation in several areas of development. General Abdurrahman Chani's visit to Bamako follows that of Niger's Prime Minister Ali Mohamed Lamine Zain in October. The head of Niger's ruling military will leave the Malian capital this afternoon.
Abdullah Hassan reporting there. Well, we do have more stories from Mali for you. Now, the Tuareg rebels in the northern region made an unexpected comeback, countering the army's claim about the discovery of a mass grave on November 16. In a statement Wednesday evening, the separatists denied the existence of such a grave in Kidal, which it had occupied until the recent military air and land offensives to recapture the territory. The rebels argued that the allegations were fabricated and a pure diversion intended to hide the horrible massacres committed by the Malian army and the private military contractor Wagner. It is important to note that the armed forces had recently carried out land and air operations in the northern region after hostilities resumed following 8 years of calm. At the center of the renewed fighting in mid-August was over the control of bases being left behind by MINUSMA. With no information coming out of Kidal and all communication links cut, claims by the army and the rebels are unverifiable. Now, the military government in Mali has appointed Major General El Hadj Gamou, the new governor of Kidal. He replaces Colonel Fode Malik Sissoko in his position, who was arrested last week after the leak of one of his telephone conversations in which he pledged allegiance to rebel leader Al-Gabas Ag-Intala. Ogeberika completes the story.
The general, who has been described as very experienced, joined the army in the mid-1990s, which earned him major missions, including as a United Nations peacekeeper. He distinguished himself in several battles against the rebellion and jihadist groups. Before joining the army, he was part of the Green Legion of the Libyan army and fought as such in certain Arab countries such as Syria. On his return to Mali, he had been on the side of the rebellion for a time before turning his back. He is one of the rare officers in northern Mali who did not desert after joining the Malian army. He arrives in a region which is not entirely under the control of the Malian state, since the soldiers of the regular army only recaptured the town from the rebels on November 13. General Gamou is not unknown to the region, since he served as zone commander there. More so, it was part of the setback suffered by the army in 2014 during the controversial visit of former Prime Minister Moussa Mara to this city. In his new functions, General Gamou will have the mission of ensuring the security of people and their property in the 8th administrative region of the country. He will also have to do everything possible to work towards the revival of socio-economic activities and the return of basic social services.
Ogeberika filed that report. And finally, in Mali, the military government has announced a deal signed with Russia to build a gold refinery in the capital Bamako, one of a batch of deals between the two countries as Russia seeks to extend its regional influence. The country's finance minister, Aluseni Sanu, said the accord, a non-binding memorandum of understanding, involves building a 200 tons per year refinery, adding that the memorandum is valid for 4 years with no further details of the timeline for construction. Experts say if this is built, it will be Mali's largest gold refinery. The deal is the latest sign of Russia's deepening interest in Mali, one of Africa's largest gold producers, just as Western influence there wanes. Recall Russia's state nuclear energy company Rosatom signed a deal with Mali in October to explore minerals and produce nuclear energy. Minister Sano said he had also signed a deal with a Russian firm to build a 200 to 300 megawatt solar power plant by mid-2025. Mali's military, which took power in a 2021 coup last year, kicked out troops from former colonial power France who were fighting Islamist militants and teamed up with the Russian military contractor Wagner Group, which has operations across Africa, including lucrative mining deals. You're listening to NewsLink on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar. Here is a reminder of the top stories. Liberia's President-elect Joseph Boakai assures inclusive government and economic reforms in his post-election victory speech. The dissolved Senegalese opposition political party PASTEF begins a sponsorship campaign ahead of the February presidential elections. Niger's junta leader General Chani makes the first official trip to Bamako to strengthen bilateral and security operations. And still ahead in the news, in Nigeria, 17 died following a truck crash in the central state of Niger. We also have a feature report and sports news. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Well, don't forget that we are streaming live on wadr.org, YouTube at WDR News, and Facebook. Road authorities in Nigeria say at least 17 people were killed and 208 injured in the country's central Niger state after a truck carrying them veered off control and crashed. According to the spokesperson of the Federal Road Safety Corps, FRSC, BC Kazim, the crash occurred at about 2 p.m. on Tuesday in Takalafia village in the Magama local government area of the state. Kazim said in a statement that the injured victims had been evacuated to Katangura General Hospital for immediate medical attention, while the dead victims were deposited in the mortuary of the same hospital. Traffic accidents are commonplace in Nigeria, where many roads are in poor condition and full of potholes. Crashes are frequent, particularly at night, with vehicles poorly lit. The Nigerian government is collaborating with the United Nations agencies and development partners to tackle the many humanitarian challenges across the country. The meeting climaxed with a $5 billion annual commitment to the Humanitarian and Poverty Alleviation Trust Fund. Partners and representatives present at the first Humanitarian Coordination Conference in Abuja, the capital city, all gave their assurances. WDR's Abuja correspondent Usman Umar reports.
The meeting, at the instance of the Minister for Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, Dr. Betta Edu, brought together humanitarian responders in Nigeria to commit to a durable, smart and coordinated approach to humanitarian response. At the end of the meeting, resolutions were reached and a framework was adopted. These include a commitment to raise $5 billion annually for the Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation Trust Fund in Nigeria. Funders would be the federal government, friendly countries, the private sector, donor agencies and development partners. Speaking, Dr. Edu conveyed President Bola Tinubu's appreciation to UN agencies and partners, reiterating the end to an era of uncoordinated humanitarian response in Nigeria.
We need to change our memorandum of operation. People are beginning to demand for accountability. They want to know what we are doing and where we are doing it, and how many lives have been directly affected, and how have things improved.
For his part, United Nations resident and humanitarian coordinator for Nigeria, Matthias Schmel, expressed absolute support to the government in its effort to tackle the numerous humanitarian challenges.
We need to find different approaches, creative ways of folding the addressing of humanitarian needs in the rest of the country into ongoing development work. That's basically, I think, the way we look at it. So the two-pronged approach into the future is, can we over time move to more sustainable solutions and development work in the Northeast, and as we do that, scale down the humanitarian work and eventually exit.
Ambassadors of Malaysia, Norway and the United Arab Emirates, amongst other ambassadors present, committed to supporting Nigeria in more strategic ways to address humanitarian crises in the country. For NewsLink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
Banjul and the European Union (EU) have signed a new financing agreement for the implementation of the Fourth Estate and Resilience Building Contract for the Gambia. A total financing of 40 million euros or $2.93 billion will be disbursed for the 2023-25 fiscal years. A breakdown of the figure indicates that a €4 million allocation is for complementary support. WDR Sankle Janko has details of the agreement in this report.
The overall objective of the financing agreement signed by the Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs, Sidi Keita, and EU Ambassador Corrado Pampaloni is to support the Gambia's effort to consolidate a peaceful, inclusive and democratic society while also promoting gender equality. The agreement focuses on reforms initiated by the government of the Gambia since 2017. Including the implementation of the white paper commitments related to the recommendations from the TRRC. the formulation and implementation of the National Development Plans for 2023-27 and the expansion of social protection support programs for the vulnerable population. The financing is also expected to enhance the relevance and accountability of public financial management for the delivery of essential services to citizens of the Gambia. Migration management was also captured on the roadmap with a specific focus on readmission and reintegration in recognition of the multifaceted challenges faced by Europe and the Gambia on irregular migration. The funding goes to the General Treasury to ensure the state's ownership of the national budget. For NEWSLINK on West Africa Democracy Radio, I'm Sankolechenko reporting from Banjul.
Now to our feature report for the week. Here in Senegal, WDR's team was at Bargny, a town east of the capital Dakar, where climate change has defaced the once economically and socially vibrant society. Fishing activities have been hampered by overfishing and pollution, and farming disrupted by land grabbing for the establishment of factories that add to gas emissions in the area. In the recent past, thousands of jobs, especially by women, were lost, and youth drowned in the sea in an attempt to balance the financial needs of them and their families. Sagdana Mendy was a member of the team on that field mission and now reports.
Bargny is a town east of Dakar, the Senegalese capital, and has a population of 70,000. This once a vibrant municipality recently awoke to a deadly silence. Dark faces line the narrow streets, visibly affected by the pirogue from the area that disappeared at sea. The boat, belonging to fisherman Amadou Ndong, left Bargny at the end of October. On board were some 180 people, including migrants from the Gambia and Guinea.
It's really a very sad affair. You can see that the town is very quiet at the moment. Even the mayor has banned all folklore. The problem that's shaking Bargny at the moment is the disappearance of a pirogue, but we're optimistic. We pray every day that our children will make it to the Canary Islands.
Worry and sadness dominate in the Yasinjeng, whose nephews were aboard the missing boat that departed weeks ago for the Spanish Canary Islands.
It frustrated me. It hurts me a lot. I'm particularly touched by my little sister's two sons who are in the peril, because in Bargny, we are all families.
The local administration has yet to provide any information about the missing pirogue. According to local councillor Salium Benga, the number of people leaving for Europe has increased in the last few days.
For some time now, we've been recording people leaving Bargny to go to Spain. More than 20 canoes have left the town. Most of these boats arrived in Spain without any problems. But recently, some canoes have had problems. Some of them have even capsized in Mauritania, resulting in a number of deaths. And there is currently no news of a pirogue that left Bargny on 30 October. We have no information about it.
In Bargny, the subject remains taboo as families of migrants to find it difficult to comment on the issue in a locality where fishing constitutes 70% of the main economic activity. A local councillor, but also a member of the Network of Association for the Protection of Environment and Nature, Salium Benga says many of the migrants are fishermen whose activities have been affected by the factories that surround the town.
There is a coal-fired power station here, built on 29 hectares in 2008. Next to it is a 100-hectare industrial economic zone, which also includes a steel and metallurgy plant. On the other side, there is also a mineral and bulk port. It covers 483 hectares. You can imagine, if you go back a little further at the entrance to Banye, there is a cement factory that has been there since 1948, covering 600 hectares or so.
Depuis 1948. Et cette cimenterie actuellement elle est sur 600 et quelques hectares.
These industries emit gases that degrade the sea and affect workers, according to C.F. Fadel Wadr, coordinator of the National Platform of Actors for Climate Justice.
Barni is a sort of industrial zone. An industrial zone cannot coexist with a residential zone. As far as ocean acidification and rising temperatures are concerned, this is leading to a scarcity of resources. Fishermen are running out of fish, and young people can no longer live in these conditions. Communities are affected.
Added to this are the effects of climate change, which significantly affect residents of this community and their main source of income, which is fishing. The people of Barni are determined to take justice into their own hands. For the moment, there has been no official reaction from the government authorities on the socio-economic and environmental situation in Barni.
Now, Sang Dinamendi there reporting. Well, there'll be more on climate change discussion on our environment program, Enviroscope, with Abdullahi Hassan. And it's time for Sport News with Sankli Janko.
Hello out there, warm welcome and thank you for joining us. Senegal have crashed out of the FIFA Under-17 World Cup after a 5-3 penalty shootout defeat to France on Wednesday. The round of 16 tie was decided on penalties after a goalless draw. Senegal had the lion's share of ball possession and created numerous goal-scoring chances but failed to find the back of the net. Following Senegal's crashing, Mali and Morocco are the only two African representatives still in the competition. Elsewhere, Manchester United defender Harry Maguire has graciously accepted the apology of a Ghanaian MP a year after being publicly ridiculed. MP Isaac Adongo went viral after comparing the Englishman's dismal performance to Vice President Mahamudu Bawumia's economic management. Adongo brutally labelled the former Red Devils captain the biggest threat at the centre of the Manchester United defence. However, Adongo this week backtracked and made a public apology in front of Parliament in light of Maguire's surprise resurgence this season.
I was very quick to compare my big brother, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, to Harry Maguire. Mr. Speaker, I now apologize to Harry Maguire. Today, Maguire has turned the corner as a transformational footballer. Harry Maguire is now scoring goals for Manchester United. Mr. Speaker, Harry Maguire is now a key player for Manchester United.
The England international Maguire has since accepted Mr. Adongo's apology, writing on Twitter, MP Isaac Adongo, apology accepted. See you at Old Trafford soon. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
And we've come to the end of this edition of NewsLink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Christian Mukudi and Maudajo for the technical support. Well, let's continue the conversation on our social media platforms, X formerly Twitter, Instagram at WADL News, and Facebook West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. Coming up at the bottom of the hour is an environment program, Enviroscope with Abdullahi Hassan. I am Imo Edet. Good afternoon.